Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back again to our continuing series. We're continuing with the journey of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu from Jagannath Puri to Vrindavan. Let us begin with glorification of Srila Prabhupada. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pastita Deshatane. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. To begin with, you can see I'm wearing a large gold kavacha, but there's a very important reason for that, and I'd like to share that with you. Over many years, I've been able to collect some transcendental gems, having had the good fortune to be here in India, and many of those gems are inside this gold kavacha. I'd like to, I have a little card here which I use to explain what's in here. So I'll read the different articles that are in this kavacha, which I carry everywhere. There's a small piece of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's wooden shoes. There's a small piece of the manuscript, the original manuscript of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Srila Rupa Goswami, which was given to me at the Vrindavan Research Institute. There's a small piece of the manuscript of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on Ujjvala Nilamani. There's a small piece, very small, of the manuscript of Krishna Shandarbha by Jiva Goswami. There's a small piece of the manuscript of Prarthana. Yes, Prarthana, written by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. There's a small piece of the final kurta worn by Srila Prabhupada. There's a very small piece of Lord Chaitanya's wooden shoe from the Dhameshwara temple in Navadvip. These are all obviously priceless treasures. There's a very small piece of Shyamananda Pandit's dhoti, one of my great heroes. There's a very small piece of Lord Chaitanya's kopin. Of course, there's a story behind each of these items, which we won't have time to tell today, but it's all there. There's a small piece of the tree from Sevakunj, under which Rupa Goswami would do his bhajan 500 years ago. And there's a small piece of the manuscript of the last chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita Anjalila, which was given to me by those who are taking care of it here in Vrindavan. And there's a very small piece of the pillar which was established by Balaram in Kambi, which differentiates the spiritual world of Vrindavan from the world of illusion beyond. I also have a very small, tiny shalagram shila with beautiful chakras inside. And I have a very tiny Govardhan Shila and a very tiny Dwarka Shila. It's like I'm carrying the spiritual world with me. I'm very, very, very grateful. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing with our series again on Lord Chaitanya's journey to Vrindavan. In our last lecture, number 5 in the series, we discussed a number of forests that Mahaprabhu first visited when he came to Vrindavan, including, if I can remember, Madhuvan, Talavan, Kumudavan, and others. And we finished the last lecture with Kamyavan. Now, from Kamyavan, Mahaprabhu, his dedicated servant Balabhadra Bhattacharya, and their guide, Krishnadas, they proceeded to Nandagram. And Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami relates in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Mahaprabhu was overwhelmed with ecstatic love on his visit to Nandagram. Actually, after bathing in the lakes in that area, because there's several lakes, including Pavan Sarovar, he actually climbed to the top of the hill of Nandagram. And very famously, he asked the locals, are there any deities on top of this hill? It's there in CC. Are there any deities on top of this hill? And the people replied, yes, there are deities on this hill, but they're located within a cave. Then they specified, they said, there are a father and a mother, and between them is a very beautiful child. 3 deities. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he very happily entered into that cave, and seeing these 3 deities, which were, or are, Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, and little Krishna, he offered his respects to them. Now, we read that every day the Lord would visit these deities, and he would chant and dance in front of them in great ecstasy. And sometime later, much later actually, Sanatana Goswami came to live at nearby Pavana Sarovar, which was one of the lakes, and he moved those deities from the cave to the top of the hill where they are now. We can all go and take darshan there. So next, Krishnadas, the Brahmana who's taking Mahaprabhu on tour, he suggested to Lord Caitanya, let us proceed to Govardhan Hill. Now Mahaprabhu, he became ecstatic just hearing this suggestion, and he immediately began walking in that direction of Govardhan Hill. Now I was reading that our acharyas say that Lord Chaitanya's circumambulation of Govardhan Hill was in no way ordinary, meaning that it was not the sort of parikrama that's, commonly seen, heard of, or performed. Because in circumambulating Govardhan Hill, they explain, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu followed the path of intense ecstatic love. It's a little subtle, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he followed the path of intense ecstatic love, which they say sometimes coincided with the established parikrama path, or at other times it diverged. He went off into a forest here or there. And his parikrama of Govardhan Hill took many days. And of course it included the forests and the lakes and the many pastime places that surround Govardhan Hill. And in every forest that the Lord visited, he would eagerly embrace each tree and vine. It's stated in Shastra. Every forest he visited, he would eagerly embrace each tree and each vine. And at the sight of cows in Vrindavan's pastures around Giriraj, the Lord would run to them in great happiness and then fall to the ground in tears. And the very sight of a peacock feather would cause him to tremble, again fall to the ground, roll about, and cry madly. Then he would rise up, run around again, only to collapse one more time unconscious. This is Mahaprabhu's parikrama. And once I read that at the sight of a herd of calves running through the forest with their tails raised, Mahaprabhu fainted in ecstasy. He fainted in ecstasy and fell into the bushes on the roadside. And local cowherd men had to come and carefully untangle him and pull him out. Wow. So, the very first place that Lord Caitanya visited at Govardhan Hill was Aristagram. Aristagram. This is described by Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 18, verse number 3. He writes, E Matta Mahaprabhu nachite nachite arit grame ashi bhaya haila achambite. And I quote, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced in ecstasy, but when he arrived at Aritgram, his sense perception was awakened. Now, Aritgram is simply another name for Aristagram, indicating where the demon Aristasura was killed by Krishna. So when Mahaprabhu reached Aristagram, he surprised the local people there when he asked, please tell me, where is Radha Kund? Where is Radha Kund? But because so much time had passed, literally, you could say 4,500 years, people had forgotten about Radhakund and Shyamakund. So the people said, well, we know of no such lake, but there are two very small bodies of water nearby, which we call Gauripukor and Kalipukor, which we as farmers use to irrigate our fields and crops. So curious, Mahaprabhu went to see these small bodies of water, and it's described very wonderfully that as soon as he stood in front of them, his shadow reflected as Radha in Radhakund and as Krishna in Shyamakund. His shadow reflected as Radha in Radhakund, and his shadow reflected as Krishna in Shyamakund, his shadow. So then and there, Mahaprabhu bathed in one of the ponds and then the other. And after bathing, he came out and he declared that the two ponds were Radhakund and Shyamakund. Then while all the villagers looked on, he offered the following prayers to those two sacred ponds to become lakes. He said, Yata Radha Priya Vishnush Tasya Kundam Priyam Tata Sarva Gopishu Saivaka Vishnu Atyanta Bhalaba. Just as Radha is most dear to Krishna, her lake is also very dear to him. She is the most beloved of all gopis. Then, you can just imagine, he'd found Radhakund and Shyamakund. Then, overwhelmed by love, he danced and danced and danced around both of those lakes, Radhakund and Shyamakund. Then he took some mud, famously from Radhakund, and he marked his body with a tilak. Not only that, he collected some more of the mud to take with him. Then he turned to his servant, Balabhadra Bhattacharya, and he said the following. My dear friend, please meditate on Radhakund, which is beautified by pavilions draped in flowering vines. This lake is praised by the great splendor of Vrindavan. Its waters are filled with the beauty and sweetness of the divine couple's loving pastimes and is respectfully worshipped by Giriraj Govardhan. So we can see that by Lord Caitanya's mercy, both Radhakund and Shyamakund are now accessible to all of us. By his mercy, they're all accessible, the two of them. And Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati has written as such in Chaitanya Chandamrita, one of my favorite books, verse 33. He writes as follows. A stone, even if sprinkled with nectar, will never sprout a single blade of grass. A dog's tail, no matter how carefully stretched out, will never become straight. A dwarf can reach out his arms as much as he likes, but he will never touch the moon. Similarly, those who follow religious rituals without the mercy of Lord Gaura will never attain ecstatic love for Krishna. Everything that we have is by the grace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, including Radhakund and Shyamakund. So then from Radhakund and Shyamakund, Lord Caitanya walked to Kusham Sarovara, one of the favorite places on Govardhan Parikrama for ISKCON devotees, or any devotee, Kusham Sarovara, with that beautiful palace behind there. And there, overwhelmed with joy at the sight of Govardhan Hill, because Govardhan Hill becomes quite manifest there, in the madness of divine love, he embraced a stone, or we say a Shila, from Govardhan Hill. You may have seen that painting. There's a famous painting of Mahaprabhu is like sitting on the ground. With his arms, he's embracing a Govardhan Shila. And then from there, he proceeded to Manasi Ganga, that lake, which is next to the town of Govardhan. There's a town of Govardhan. And there, he went to the temple of Haridev. Haridev. one of my favorite places, perhaps one of your favorite places, too, because we know that's where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had one very ecstatic kirtan. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 18, verses 19 and 20, we hear, Harideva age nache prema matahana, shabe loka dekite aila ascharya suniya. Quote, mad with ecstatic love, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to dance before the Haridev deity. Hearing of the Lord's wonderful activities, all the people came to see him. Just like when we hear there's some ecstatic kirtan nearby, we go. So what could be more ecstatic than Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kirtan? He descended for the purpose of inaugurating the Sankirtan movement. So according to Kaviraj Goswami, when Mahaprabhu was dancing in front of Haridev, so many people came. Prabhu Prema Sundaraya Dheki Loki Chamatkara Hadidi Vera Britya Pabura Karaya Satkara. The people were astonished when they saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic love and his personal beauty. The priest who served the Haridev deity offered the Lord a good reception. That's how Kaviraj Goswami puts it. The priest who served the Haridev deity offered the Lord a good reception. Then, afterwards, just a few meters away, the Lord took prasadam at Brahmakund. Those of you who have been there, you know there's Manasi Ganga, and there's the Haridev temple, and then nearby there's this smaller kund, Brahmakund. And the Lord took prasadam there. That's Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 1821. Bhattacharya Brahmakunde Pakayana Kaila Brahmakunde Snanakari Prabhu Bhiksha Kaila. Quote, at Brahmakund, the Bhattacharya cooked food, and the Lord, after taking his bath at Brahmakund, accepted his lunch. It's so nice we have all these details about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life. Now, he had this ecstatic kirtan in front of Haridev, and I know that whenever I go there with the Parikrama party, sometimes we'll have kirtan in front of that deity for hours. And the origin of the Haridev deity who inspired Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so much is very interesting, and I thought I would share with you the history of that particular deity. So, 5,000 years ago, when Krishna was present in Vrindavan, at the site where Haridev now stands, Srimati Radharani and her cowherd girlfriends, they were once talking amongst themselves about all the times that they had, enjoying with Krishna. And as they talked excitedly about Krishna's beautiful features, his charming ways, and his, it's described his humorous words, they felt that he was there with them in sound, but at the same time separated from them in form. That's astonishing. They felt that he was there with them in sound, but at the same time separated from them in form. So very quickly, their feelings of separation intensified to, it's described, a fever pitch. Then the gopis could no longer speak coherently, so they just resorted to simply chanting Krishna's holy names. They were chanting, O Hari, O Deva, O Hari, O Deva, O Hari, O Deva. That's all they could do. Well, that's everything, actually. So the acharyas say that unable to neglect his beloved's call in the pain of their sorrow, Krishna suddenly appeared before the gopis with his flute held in his right hand and his left hand raised as if lifting Govardhan Hill. Now, once Krishna had appeared before them, the gopis, they fed him, it's described, they fed him delicious food, they decorated him with flowers, and they massaged his limbs. But when it was time for him to return to his cows, because that's where he came from, he appeared before them because they were calling him. When it came time for him to return to his cows, they wouldn't let him go. Radharani pleaded, "Hari Dev, always stay with us here." But at the same time, Krishna could also hear his friends, the cowherd boys, nearby anxiously calling, "Krishna, where are you? Where have you gone?" Because he disappeared from them to come to the gopis. So it's so nectarian. To satisfy both groups of his dearest devotees. Krishna returned to his cowherd boyfriends and the business of tending cows, but left behind a deity of himself for the gopis to serve. Wow. Krishna returned to his friends and the cows, but he left behind a deity of himself for the gopis to serve. And that's Haridev. That's the deity that's there. So from that day on, the gopis came daily to serve that deity of Krishna, whom they named Haridev, because they were calling out to Krishna, Hari, O Deva. So they named him Haridev. And daily, by bathing and dressing and ornamenting him, Haridev, the acharyas say that there was no end to the ecstasy of Srimati Radharani. Because she felt that being able to freely serve this deity of Krishna, whom the other residents of Braja thought to be an incarnation of Lord Narayan, it eased her feelings of separation from Krishna. Haridev He. So next time you do Govardhan Parikrama, please stop by at Manasi Ganga and visit that temple of Haridev and have an ecstatic kirtan, as Mahaprabhu did and as the gopis did. We're following in their footsteps. So after taking that lunch we mentioned, cooked by Balabhadra Bhattacharya, Lord Caitanya rested there at Manasi Ganga, Brahmakund actually. But that night, he stayed awake. Actually, I was reading that he didn't sleep that night. He actually stayed awake the whole night chanting in Haridev's temple. He was supposed to sleep, but he didn't. He'd stayed up all night having kirtan. But in the morning, when Balabhadra Bhattacharya came and found him still doing kirtan, Balabhadra Bhattacharya said, "You didn't sleep." So at that moment, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed his heart to Balabhadra Bhattacharya, that it was very nice to be dancing in front of Haridev, but up until this point he was unable to see Madhavinda Puri's Gopal deity. Nowadays we call him Srinathji. He was unable to see the Gopal deity, another deity intimately linked with Govardhan Hill, because the Gopal deity stayed in a temple on top of Govardhan Hill, near the village of Anukuta. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, thinking and presenting himself as a devotee of Krishna, he was unwilling to climb the hill. Mahaprabhu never climbed up Govardhan Hill, and neither do his followers, because Giriraj is not different than Krishna. So he was lamenting to Balabhadra Bhattacharya, "Since I shall not at any time climb Govardhan Hill," he said, "how will I ever be able to see Gopal Raya?" The words he used, Gopal Raya. He was lamenting. However, Gopal, the deity, knew what was on Mahaprabhu's mind. And so he played a trick, the Gopal deity, on top of Govardhan Hill. The Gopal deity knew the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because, well, they're non-different. So he played a trick. The Gopal deity, discovered by Madhavinda Puri, and at that time worshipped on top of the hill, he inspired a villager from within the heart to spread a rumor that a group of Muslim soldiers were nearby and they were preparing to plunder Govardhan village and that whole area. So this villager, he spread this rumor. He was very convinced, because the Lord in the heart convinced him that the Muslim soldiers are coming. So he went around everywhere telling the villagers, everyone must leave this village immediately, along with the deity, Gopal, on top of the hill, because the Muslim soldiers will come tomorrow and cause harm to the Lord. So the head priest taking care of Gopal, or Srinathji, was a devotee named Ramdas. And so Ramdas, hearing this rumor, the Muslim soldiers are coming, he quickly assembled 3 Vaishnavas. 2 of them were named Sadhu Pandey. I was reading this in the Vrindavan Research Institute. Sadhu Pandey and Kumbhan Das, and the other was a farmer. And what those 3 devotees did, or 4 because Ramdas was there, they very quickly took the deity of Gopal out of the temple on top of Govardhan Hill, and they put him on the back of a buffalo, so no one would, suspect. Covered him with a chadar. They placed the deity on the back of a buffalo, and they shifted him to a village named Gantuli, on the opposite side of Govardhan Hill, at the bottom of Govardhan Hill. Now, in Gantuli, Gopal was kept in the house of a Brahmana for fear of the Muslims. And for several days, his worship was conducted secretly. Now, it's very interesting. I was reading again in the Vrindavan Research Institute. It's written. Several writers, poets, scholars of those times, they write that in those days, deities used to personally talk with their priests. Obviously, those priests were very advanced souls. So it says in the scriptures, in those days, the deities used to personally talk with their priests. So one day Ramdas, he asked Gopal why he wanted to leave the top of Govardhan Hill and come to such a secluded place as Gantuli. So Gopal, Srinathji, replied, while being worshipped on top of Govardhan Hill, I was so far away from Srimati Radharani. I was so far away from her for so many years. So I'm waiting here in Gantuli to see Shri Radha, who has appeared in the combined form of Radha and Krishna, in the personality of Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna, Nahi Anga. As Kaviraj Goswami explains very clearly in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Lord was originally one, but to enjoy pastimes of pleasure, he expanded as 2. Ladini Shakti, the pleasure potency of the Lord manifested as Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radharani. So the 2, Krishna and Radha, then again became one in the personality of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is the Gopal deity saying, I'm waiting to see Radha because she's present in the personality of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his mood, his bhav. And that was soon to happen. Because after waking up at the Haridev temple and lamenting he could not see Gopal, Mahaprabhu continued his circumambulating Govardhan Hill, dancing and at times singing in ecstatic love for Krishna, it's described. And while doing so, he recited a verse once spoken by Shri Radha. Of all the devotees, this Govardhan Hill is the best. O my friends, this hill supplies Krishna and Balaram along with their calves, cows, and cowherd friends with all kinds of necessities: water, very soft grass, caves, fruits, flowers, and vegetables. In this way, the hill offers respects to the Lord. Being touched by the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, Giriraj appears very jubilant. It's going on like this. So, as soon as Mahaprabhu reached Govindakund, which was further down, he heard that Gopal had been moved from his temple on top of Govardhan Hill to this town of Gantuli Gram. So he was happy. He very quickly proceeded to that village where he got the opportunity to take darshan. And the deity got to see him, as we mentioned earlier. Mahaprabhu very much wanted to see the deity, as we were hearing, and the deity very much wanted to have darshan of Mahaprabhu. So Purnamasi arranged it all. And while in front of this beautiful deity of Gopal, discovered by Madhavinda Puri, and now in Nathdwar, further south in Rajasthan, Mahaprabhu sang the following verse. May the left arm of Sri Krishna, whose eyes are like the petals of a lotus flower, always protect you. With his left arm, he raised Govardhan Hill as if it were a toy. So we hear from our acharyas that Mahaprabhu remained in Gantuli for exactly 3 days, until it was revealed that it was only a rumor. It was only a rumor that the Muslim soldiers were attacking. So at that time, with that news, Gopal was taken back on top of Govardhan Hill. And as he was being moved, his pujari, Ramdas, asked Lord Caitanya, now how will your followers be able to take Gopal's darshan in the future? Gopal came down to see you, and you saw him. But in the future, how will your followers be able to take darshan of this beautiful deity? Because again, Mahaprabhu didn't walk on Govardhan Hill, and neither should we. So Lord Caitanya replied as follows, quote, my followers' love will drag Gopal down from the hill to this ground. My followers' love will drag Gopal down from the hill to the ground. And we see that took place because Gopal, the Srinathji, by the mercy of the Vaishnavas who so much wanted to worship him, now he's accessible in Nathdwar. You can go to Nathdwar and have his darshan. And it's true that the love of the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will give us access to the Lord. That's true in more ways than one. For Lord Chaitanya's, Mahaprabhu's followers, one of his followers, for us, the most important follower, our Srila Prabhupada, his love for Krishna has brought the Lord into reach for all of us. Prabhupada has brought Krishna to us in a very appropriate and easily attainable form, in the form of his holy names. Prabhupada brought the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, to the West. Prabhupada did a miracle in bringing deity worship to the West. He gave us access to the Lord in the form of the scriptures, even prasadam, you could say. So in that sense, we owe everything good, everything auspicious to Srila Prabhupada. He made Krishna very accessible. His love brought Krishna to us. The possibility that we can leave this world and go back home, back to God, we owe that all to Srila Prabhupada. So in that regard, I would like to conclude today with a poem by a very close associate of Lord Caitanya, Kashishwara Pandit. We read about Kashishwara Pandit in Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we know that Kashishwara Pandit, Mahaprabhu sent him to Vrindavan with the deity to worship alongside the Govindaji, Rupa Goswami's Govindaji deity in Vrindavan. Rupa Goswami needed a pujari for Govinda Dev, so Mahaprabhu sent Kashishwara Pandit as that pujari along with a beautiful deity for the devotees there. So he's a famous devotee, and like many devotees, he wrote. He wrote poems about the Lord. And there's one poem that I found in the Vrindavan Research Institute where he glorifies the form of the Guru who makes Krishna accessible to us. And we will read this poem now while envisioning the beautiful form of our spiritual master, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Srila Prabhupada. As I repeat the words of Kashishvara Pandit, just meditate on Srila Prabhupada. He writes as follows: the forehead of the Guru is the only source of satisfaction for a disciple. The eyes of the Guru are the treasure house of all the secrets of the three worlds for the disciple. The nose of the Guru is the pride of knowledge for the disciple. The lips of the Guru are the gates to the knowledge of the Vedas. The tongue of the Guru is the nectar pot of Dhanvantari. The neck of the Guru is renunciation from the material world. The shoulders of the Guru are the grace of devotional life. The chest of the Guru is the abode of the divine couple. The hands of the Guru are the source of all blessings. The torso of the Guru is the ocean of bliss. The thighs of the Guru are the strength of the bhakti of the disciple. The lotus feet of the Guru are like Chintamani gems for the disciple. The toes of the Guru are like millions of pilgrimages. The toenails of the Guru are the moonlight of love for Krishna. The shadow of the Guru is the eternal protection of the disciple. The dust from his lotus feet are the opulence of the 14 worlds. The remnants of the Guru's prasad are the nectar of Krishna's lips. Cloth used by him is the good fortune of the disciple, and the words of the Guru are the only shelter for the disciple. Hare Krishna. And Kashishvara Pandit then concludes his work by writing the following, and we will finish today with this deep insight. On that blessed day in which one is accepted as a disciple by the Guru, at the conclusion of the ceremony, the disciple should pray as follows: My dearmost spiritual master, with no support in this world, I was falling into the ocean of great sorrow and lamentation. You are my only shelter now. You kindly took my hand and placed me in the boat to Vrindavan, where one finds divine love for Radha and Krishna. My Guru, my shelter, my only Savior, from this day forth, I am yours. Make my body your asana, my hands your instruments, and engage all my senses in your service. Please kill my false pride, destroy my material desires, beat my uncontrolled senses, smash my bad fortunes, and deliver me to the son of Maharaj Nanda. Today, I offer my respects to you again and again and again. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, we have, more places to visit with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we will continue that amazing journey in a few days. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Glories to Prabhupada. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radha Shama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Srimati Radharani ki, Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Jagannath Subhadra Bhaladeva ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yagya ki, Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe.